You hear us, John? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Oh. Yep.
Yeah.
Hi, John. You're saying.
Yes, friends, I am here. I'm not worthy of your sight though, so I'm gonna hide.
Who's that?
Sam.
Oh, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Good. Good. How are you?
Good. I'm not feeling well today, so I'm just listening in, okay?
All right. Work. What time does it say there? I can't see that far.
That's
6:31.
6:31.
Okay, call to order. Matthew Clark, interim chairman of the Economic Development Commission, calling the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. We're going to start with public participation, both in room, in here in the room and online. And I'll open the floor. Public participation.
Mike, you see there's a hand up?
Yep. Someone online as well.
Okay. Go ahead, James Marshall.
Yep. Hi guys. James Marsh, 46 Fisher Hill Road. Although I'm on the Board of Finance, I'm here tonight speaking personally. I'm interested to hear, I just wanted to say I'm interested here to hear more about the development of the River Road Rail project. It'll be interesting to see how that's going. And I know myself and many others are curious to see where that's headed. I also just want to note that, you know, while I appreciate opportunities for economic growth, I remain very hesitant about any projects that would create a heavy industrial use or a heavy distribution center type use over in West Willington. Similar to what we went through last year with the Trade Center. I know it's probably a different project, but there's little information out there in the public about it. So I'm curious to hear where it's at. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. If you would.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Stu Fisher. I'm a Democratic candidate for First Selectman. I wanted to introduce myself to the committee tonight. It's a pleasure to be here and listen to you and the projects you have going on. I look forward to supporting you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, appreciate it. So approval of minutes. John handed out, or excuse me, Mike handed out minutes before our call or our meeting. I read over these. They look pretty good to me. Any discussion?
Nope. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 26, 2023.
I'll second the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hi.
And it's unanimous. Move to commission business. Welcome signage. We had some good feedback from the public on our welcome signage and the anticipation for that. Maybe we can get an update from either Mike or Jim. Excuse me, Mike. I think you indicated you can give an update on this.
Yeah, so at the last meeting in July, we went over some of the identified locations. And from there, we sent out letters to the property owners, basically letting them know what the commission was intending to do. And gave them a rendering, showed them a rendering of the sign and the proposed location. And I think John got a call from the property owner on River Road as you come into town from Mansfield, said, no problem at all, happy to post the sign.
That's great.
So we've got one, they're still in production, we don't physically have them yet. It was I think 4 or 6 week construction time.
4 to 6 week construction.
So that was from July when we basically gave the okay and you guys approved the rendering. So we should have them shortly. We'll have to figure out the exact location, and we're gonna work with the sign contractor. Obviously, he does this, so we wanna make sure that he gives us feedback on how they should be located and kind of what he's learned. So we've got one of them wrapped up and hope to hear from the other one soon.
Yeah, I was thinking about actually reaching out to Jeff, and I want to see it before it goes in. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, John, you haven't heard from Jeff yet, right? It's like that they're
Oh,
ready
no, in
or,
terms of progress, no, I haven't.
okay. So we should have this soon.
Good, and I think we indicated, just refresh everyone, Mike, we indicated that we're gonna do one per year, right? Is that what we thought?
So because we did at the end of the fiscal year and it was in the budget, we were able to do two and we got a better price. So we are currently he's constructing two. We sent out letters for two. So we did the River Road from Mansfield and then right in the center of the V in front of the Dollar General parcel. The other property that we reached out to because neither would require any DOT involvement because we could get them out of the right of way. That's the plan.
So is that building still owned by Dollar General, or did they sell it?
It was constructed and last I understood, still owned by, I think it's called Garrett Homes. He does Dollar Generals and O'Reilly Auto Parts and they're based out of Torrington. So I think
It
that's,
was for sale about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
it's possible, yeah. But I believe when we sent the letter, it still was going to that Torrington address. I could be wrong.
Okay, all right, good. So, and we had, I'm sorry, so we did get feedback from the Dollar General site, or we didn't?
We got feedback from the River Road site, not the Dollar General site yet.
And we did reach out to them?
Yes.
Okay, good. And and that's Garrett Homes?
That's who did the construction. I can tell you who owns it.
Yeah, let us know who owns that. Okay. That's a pretty important little site. And then we had two other sites as well that we haven't reached out to because we're not ready to move forward with that.
Right, we don't have the signs.
And Mike, I apologize, I'm not up to date here. I lose track of details. Where were those locations again?
We had one that we had talked about, as you come into town from Ashford. On the right-hand side, there's that sort of round.
74?
There's that round building, set way back, but they've got a pretty long frontage. So we talked about that. And then I'm not sure that we had a fourth location because there was some issues with the next logical place I think would be 32 coming out of Stafford. But there's a lot of issues with right away there because of some rock in the rail line and some other things. So there's nothing that I could see really close to the town line and putting it a mile or two in. I'm not, that's something we have to decide upon.
They're summarized too, Matt, just to let you know on page 2 of the minutes, just letting you know, as a reference point there, the exact locations are here.
Great.
John took the notes from our last meeting.
Okay, I'm good with that. So, next thing is business outreach interviews. What we did here was we wanted to reach out to businesses in Willington and sort of get an understanding of what their attitudes, perceptions, and opinions were regarding working, owning in Willington, success factors, how they're doing, things that are working well, things that are not working well, their perceptions of working alongside or with the town, and also their needs, and sort of reaching out in that manner. Sort of in addition to, I reached out to a couple of economic development professionals about 6 or 8 months ago, and sort of tried to get an understanding of what their recommendations for a town of our size and our situation would be. And then we wanted to also reach out to the businesses in town. So, and our good friend Bill Rankin did a wonderful, awesome job on some of these. And I thought maybe we could discuss some of the findings from that. I read them long ago. I thought they were great. So You sent us a draft form here. And some of the things that I took away, I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder, but
Right ahead.
some of the things I took away, number one was talk about taxes, tax rates, paying taxes. Generally speaking, I mean, we can have a conversation here, an open conversation, but I think what I heard from yours was they're generally happy with the tax rates.
Yeah, a lot of them, it was one of the reasons why they pitched their tent in town. You know, they went, well, of the 5 candidates that I met with so far, one has been in business in town since 1942, and the other one's been in business for 9 months. So there's a whole different dynamic there in terms of, but if you talk to the people who have purchased land to conduct their business, one of the motivations was the mill rate was reasonable. They did. And they're a little concerned about where it could go just based on inflation and the cost of living and things like that. But that's a typical response.
Yeah. My perception is that and I don't know, I served on the Board of Finance, and I remember seeing comparisons of our mill rate to others. And we were at the low end, but not the lowest of comparable towns. So that's interesting. I also, the other thing that I took away was about, and I want you to chime in too, was about the voting. I was surprised. I was very, very surprised.
I didn't know that. Did you know that?
What, about the voting, that you couldn't vote in town if you didn't live in town?
Yeah. I did not know
Yeah.
that.
I thought there was a provision for taxpaying groups or something like that.
Well, my last interview that I had, the owner was very, understood the town very well. She has been here a long time. And she said, I think as an owner of a business that pays property taxes, you can vote on the budget, but you cannot vote on political.
In an election?
So I said I would find out, because
I thought so. Mike and I were talking beforehand, and when they did the referendum, or some vote recently, which I think that was spending, but there was a category down at the bottom, and I think 7 or 8 or 9 people voted that are non-citizens.
of course they are.
I think,
Business
I
owners.
can't be sure, I'm on the record here, but I can't be sure. I'm almost positive that's what it was.
So
So
I found that interesting, and I told all 5 of them that I would get back to them and let them know.
I can do a little legwork and ask around, so.
One was, all of them, with the exception of one, has and operates heavy equipment and or creates a lot of waste just from the business that they're in. That's the retail business. And they were concerned that they couldn't use the town dump.
I was just gonna make that comment, Bill. I was gonna say, I don't think that's right. I think they should be able to. They're paying taxes in Willington. They're paying taxes. They should be able to use the transfer
The
station.
concern, I share your concern.
Yeah.
I think the issue in that would be a business comes into town that their business is generating waste, and then they would use, the large portion of the business generates waste, or their whole business is to generate waste. We break things down, sell the good stuff, and then throw away the bad stuff. Well, we don't want it in our land, like it's an example. We don't want it in our transfer station. So I think that's but I can understand that.
I mean, if you're dealing with hazardous materials, I can understand that.
Right.
But if it's just
Or just, but even
packaging and retail,
yeah,
food, I can understand that.
yeah.
Well,
So what would they do? How would that work? They would have to hire a professional, trash service.
Yeah, or pay for a dumpster.
Commercial garbage.
Commercial garbage, and then it has to go somewhere.
A lot of them have
dumpsters.
Right.
Yeah, have to pay for the company to empty it and all that stuff.
So
I mean, that
what do the apartments do? All the apartments in town, they have commercial service, that has to, that means,
Right.
that means.
I think the residents bring their trash to dumpster areas.
Yeah, and then it gets hauled away.
Huh, interesting, okay. That was interesting, this vote thing was interesting. The other thing that was interesting to me in your write-up, Bill, was that, in terms of the voting, was, I read that as not that they don't, it's not like I have a right to vote. It's not the vote thing, it's that they would have a voice.
Yeah, and
You can't express anything.
Yeah.
if you
I
can't
truly
vote.
believe
can't
it's,
vote, yeah.
if it's where it's at, they would be satisfied with that, because they would like to be able to vote in the direction the town is taking from an economic standpoint as opposed to a
Yeah.
political standpoint.
Right, understood. Yeah, that was interesting. Well, and the next one I had was security. A lot of,
Yeah, I mean, of the three of them, involved in heavy equipment, there's a lot of money there. Unfortunately, these days, we have thieves that are stealing catalytic converters, and, you know, you take a truck tire. A typical trailer truck tire is $350 to $400, and that's with the casing being turned in. So that without the casing, it's close to 500. You put 18 of them on a truck, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
So they were just concerned, although they're not having difficulty right now with security. One of them, two of them actually mentioned would like to have a resident trooper in town. And two
out of 5.
but two of the three heavy equipment people.
Yeah. I noticed when I came in here, I read that between end of work at, 6 and, 6:15 when I left to come here, I read your things. And when I drove in the driveway here, this building has continuous video monitoring. And I don't think any other buildings in Willington have that. So just an observation, it's right in the front of my mind, and I look down, there it is,
Yeah, it was funny because the one who brought it up originally, and see, I learned certain things when I was talking to them that I would bring up in the next meeting. Just to get their feeling on what they thought. And the one who brought up the security was someone who has not been a business owner in town for long. And they're growing,
Yeah,
and they're looking for additional land. So they were interested in getting an idea of security, although they haven't had any problems. But, you look at your assets a little bit differently when you owe money on them.
yeah. Related to the taxes there was some feedback on the referendum that just happened. I know, there was nothing negative about that, so. There's also, was some comments about increasing, you tell me, I spent 15 minutes reading 5 of these. So, but I think, wasn't there comments about wanting to grow the actual residential base, non-apartment residential base?
Yeah, I mean, especially people who are involved in homeowner improvements, whether that's additions or septic tanks, as well as retail. Their business comes from headcount.
Right.
And when one gentleman brought it up, I repeated, I hope I was right when I said it, but when we did our last census in town, I think it revealed that over 60% of the homes are rented, owned, but renters are in it. And that was, to me, when I read that, that was shocking. I did not realize it was that high. Am I off when I said that?
I don't know off the top of my head, that does seem quite high.
Put down a list of just things to check if you could.
It might make more sense if it was 60% of the population was renting, because then you have apartments. But 60% of I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, their business, comes from.
Yeah, It's 58% is owner occupied, 36% is renter occupied, 7% is vacant. This is taken from the here, I'm gonna put it up on the screen. This is from the American Community Survey. Can you see that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
So yeah, we're about even with the rest of Connecticut, with Connecticut as a whole, a little bit lower than Talon County, but 58% owner occupied, 36% renter occupied, and yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the apartments and the transient nature of Yukon.
So that's across all housing types.
Correct.
by the way, does that drive down our income rates? Because we're a lot, I remember reading that what was it, we were, I think we were 13 or 14% poverty rate, and the state average is like 6.7 or something like that. I don't know if it doesn't matter, it's not germane to our conversation, but, you know, it seems to me that those apartments would generate or goose up that number for us. Anyway, whatever.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I think that it can, because what ends up happening is that they were designed for Yukon students and they're often used for families who stay permanently.
Well, and
Just my
John
input.
would know more than I would, but the Yukon the Yukon students don't establish a residency, right? So they're I mean, not that they have any income, but it's probably not impacting.
Okay.
Oh, it
Right,
is.
No, but what
No,
I'm
I
saying
mean-
is it was designed for them, but then families who cannot afford a lot, who are obviously on the spectrum, lower income, end up moving into those apartments that weren't really originally designed to be very long-term,
Yeah,
permanent places for families to live. That's just my thought upon doing analysis over of family types, family structures, and what else did we do with one of the things that I studied was about equality and the Gini index, which is about like the amount of different types of people that live. And Willington is very balanced. One of the one that had the highest Gini score with the biggest inequality was Mansfield, believe it or not. So I think that those apartments balance us, even though it's not where we want to be income wise.
I do think for the American Community Survey that the students do count, and their income does, and because Mansfield poverty is actually very high, but that counts students in dorms in many cases.
right.
Mansfield poverty might be high, but Mansfield wealth is also extremely high. So they
Right.
have the
Yeah.
Gini index measures the difference of those
Right.
things and how many people would have to move from one neighborhood to the other to make it. I mean, it's a weird little math thing, but Mansfield was the highest in the state, but that was probably in 2018 that I was doing that research. So I don't know if that's changed since then, but I just wanted to say that. So while we have poverty, we also have a level of equity and like equality, which I think was changing and growing and was revealed during the most recent referendum. The difference of people who are like extreme wealth versus the average person in Wellington. You can start to see those differences make impact in the politics.
John, what was the date of that report?
That was taken from the 2020 American Community Survey, so it was a couple years ago.
Thank you, John. So going back to they felt the three businesses that were more involved with the retail end of it or selling a service. They gave me the impression that the stakeholders in town, that the owners of the residents or the residents themselves, that they do improvements on, work on, or come to dinner, that would increase their business over time.
Yeah.
Which is natural. The central location of Wellington with the highway access allows them to do an awful lot of business in towns other than Wellington. There are some issues associated with out-of-state work that they used to do because the states have put permitting requirements on the services that they have, which requires them to go out and get permits so they could do business over state lines. And a lot of them have given that up with regards to. Got it. Along the lines of, again, all five of them, friendly town to do business in. Local government is very forward-thinking as well as open. One in particular named Michael, and said he was a pleasure to work with, and took both the smart questions that they had and the stupid questions that they had. So, give you an idea.
Doesn't mean I didn't give a stupid answer.
It was, I'll tell you,
So tell me about working with local government. I heard one that was like so-so, and four that were good.
Neutral.
One was neutral.
One was neutral.
Four were pretty good.
Yeah.
That's good news. That's really good news.
I agree. And again, if you look at the tenure of how long they have been in town working, it was all over the place. You know, it was long-term, short-term, just happened. So that was good, it was good. It's one of the reasons why I did it that way, but I also wanted to speak with people who were asset intense, other than the real estate, just to get a feel for.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not familiar, you know, I'm not a government expert, but I'm not familiar. How did that work? So years and years ago, it was, you know, localities would tax real property, and they would tax business property, and they would tax, and I think that still happens. And then they would also tax flux property. Your inventory went up $100,000, your taxes go up too. And I'm not sure how that works these days. I don't know how that works. So.
I'm not sure they tax their revenue generating assets.
I think they do. Yeah, they do.
Any personal property owned by a business is taxed at the mill rate.
Does that include, now, but there's no auditing or anything like that, right?
They file a personal property declaration, which if it's a piece of equipment, they'll provide all the make, the model, this or that, and its value just like a vehicle. The only difference is they're not getting those direct values, and all that information isn't coming from the DMV on a backhoe. But they're gonna still provide the make, the model, and all those things. And then they go through the same process if they feel it's overvalued, like you would appeal your assessment.
Didn't FedEx appealed once, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to appeal. I think they have a handful every year. But I mean, like John and I, we pay taxes on our computers to the town of Vernon. And every year they go in and they provide a depreciation value. You said it was this, now we'll depreciate it by that, and this is the new value. What else did you buy? And yes, there is no independent verification, but a hairdresser will pay on her chair.
I get it. Thank you for providing
Literally
context.
everything.
Okay, anything else?
There are ways to avoid that. I mean, we would lease our equipment.
Yeah.
And because our equipment ran through many states, we would not be, most of it was done in Maine or Tennessee, simply because they had different laws associated with it. And when we had approved that equipment was running. So there are ways to offset it, but there are also need to be able to prove that, you know.
You know, I didn't write up my interview. I did one interview as well. One of the campground owners. And it was very consistent with what you're talking about. Generally happy with Willington, been here a long time. Taxes are reasonable, although there are no services provided at all. So she's like, they're not bad, but I don't get anything in return either. Local businesses, you know, there's not really a local business community, but that's fine in the rural area. So very similar to what we found. Anything else you want to share?
No, logistically, with an advantage, part-time help, especially for some of the businesses that have seasonal fluctuations. Historically, they would grab them from, when school was in session, they would grab them from students. When school was out of session, they would grab the teachers and retired CDL drivers, but they're not available anymore. They were all just, just shaking their heads that they can't find part-time help.
And I talked to, I was over at Love's and I was at TA, and when I was at Love's, every single person I talked to lived in Willington. Every employee I talked to lived in Willington. And they were all very young, 18, 20, 22, 24, that kind of, maybe not old, but to me, that's really, really young. And then the same thing at TA. You know, almost everyone that I talked to worked in Willington. Excuse me, lived in Willington, they were our residents. Okay, so I guess we can move now. Let's put townwide strategic planning last. If you guys mind if I do that?
No.
Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
And go on to River Road Rail Project. We could talk about a little update on that.
I believe this was an area you wanted to be involved in, James? Jim?
He stepped away. I can, if that's the case, if he stepped away.
Sorry, gentlemen. Yes, I apologize. I was away from the phone, listening in an earbud.
The property that we're talking about here is the Desiato site off of River Road. Phil and his dad have been mining that site since 1977. And Phil was interested in developing the site, but during our discussions, was started in 2020, I think.
Right.
During the discussions, Phil went sideways on us for a little while. And the reason he went sideways on us for a little while is he sold the business. And so for about 5 or 6 months, we kind of dropped down. The business got sold to F&F Concrete out of Plantsville, Connecticut. Lauren Forgione is the president. And they purchased Desiato, and the branding and the name is going to remain the same because the people and the location is nothing there that she wants to change with regards to its reputation. The longevity, word of mouth is what brings business their way. They have a concrete tower in Plantsville that they bring in materials for the concrete tower locally. It's hard to beat that price out of stores or Willington simply because logistics, especially operating a truck, is big money. So they're looking at this operation as a growth, some expansion. We approached them, the deal got done with regards to the sale. Mr. Desiato sold it. And Lauren has been operating it now since January of 22. Interested in developing the site off of River Road. But right now, if you've ever done a startup or a transition, they're busy. So it's on their radar screen. And they're interested in doing it somewhere down the road, whether it's business that could work with their core competencies, or they want to be a landlord and let another person come in, or they would sell some of it. But right now it's on somewhat of a holding pattern. The railroad has, and is marketing it. It's on their website, the Genesee and Wyoming Railroad. They own 108 railroads in North America and Europe. Before I sold my business, I was their second largest customer on this rail line that runs all the way up to Canada. I know them well. The phone didn't stop ringing from the gentleman who I partnered with to get them to talk to Lauren and F&F. And they were very interested in understanding why the trade center got shot down in Willington. which I went through with them. So it's on their website, it's being actively marketed. And right now, Lauren and F&F are busy, but they see this as an opportunity. So that's the status. Now, I can tell you, I remember when we talked about this and Erica was here and she said, what do you think the timing on this is? And I said, well, anywhere between 1 year and 10. Simply because it requires a large development. That site is good for an infrastructure project when they need to bring in metals, and it's got the right site for paving, aggregate, etc. Do I see it being a mega distribution center with 50 or 75 trucks a day coming in and out? I said, no, I don't. I said, because the access is through Y Road, to get up to 84. So you don't want people coming in and out of there with trucks that are from South Carolina or from Ontario. You want someone who comes in and out of there like Desiato does, who's local and knows the area because of the access. So it's got a lot of promise. It fits what's going on right now with regards to the industry. I remember we were talking about this with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I asked a question of about 11 or 12 people. How many people have had a small package delivered to their front step in the past 2 weeks? All 11 hands went up. And that's what's happened. The tipping point on this is people don't want to travel. So it's an opportunity. It's going to take a while because it needs to be the right glove that fits the hand. But there's an interest on the part of Lauren and F&F, and there's an interest on the part of the people who do this for a living.
And what would the contours of that look like? We have some business that's there now. And then we're talking about, we talked about the ingress egress thing a couple times.
There is no business there now.
Right, but she's all right.
She's buying it.
Right, that's what I mean. Okay, so, and then for that, that'll stay the same, right?
Yep.
All right, and then she's interested in developing, changing use from this to something else and developing further, right?
Well, there's a lot more property other than just what abuts the rail.
Yeah.
And I think in the effort of what they're pulling out of there,
Was it
Rock might know
108?
more than me.
108 acres, I can't
I
remember.
don't know the exact acreage on it. But they're leveling it out.
Yeah.
I walked it just from the standpoint of what a warehouse could be and what you could put on it from the standpoint of where it's at. It's very flexible too. The only problem with it not being flexible is the access and the best way to get to 84. I said that right from the beginning, that when we opened up the Palmer, Mass, we started with 40,000 and we ended up with 250,000. And the truck traffic was a concern. But after being there close to 30 years, we didn't have a problem. People understood it. We had 30 people from town working there, and we were the second largest taxpayer in town. So it has this facility right here with the Y Road and going across the railroad tracks there. We want people who are familiar with the roads as opposed to.
Got it. Okay, and any questions for, any discussion, talk?
Pretty clear.
Maybe we can go to that, is that right?
Go and ask Mr. Marshall.
Oh, James, do you have any thoughts or you'd like to share?
No, I mean, I appreciate the update and that you're following up on, the potential lead. I'm curious to see how it develops over the coming years. So I
Thanks.
appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yep. So I guess we could move to townwide strategic plan. Is that all right? You have more to add? Is that okay?
I'm done.
So we reached out, right now, this is on here as a placeholder. We issued an RFP just to bring everyone up to speed. We had the discussion, we issued an RFP for planning assistance and for developing a townwide strategic plan in terms of economic development, A, and B, matching our town's needs and our town's capacity for paying and our tax rates into some kind of a forward projection, and then using that to determine what our growth and our development would have to be. So, two different things. One is change glasses so I can see farther than my nose. Get old, this is what happens, but you already knew that. So, you know, so there's two different things here. One is trying to project out to the future where, what our needs are gonna be, what our revenue is gonna be, what our tax rate's gonna be, what our growth is gonna be. You know, static, and then what it would need to be given where we're headed and what the town's needs are, and then trying to match that to an economic growth model or goals, if you will. So we got those plans back.
We were talking 5, 10, and 15-year increments, right?
Yeah.
We go beyond 10 on the RFP,
I don't think we got specific with what we needed them to make the projections to. I mean, we discussed that internally, but I don't think we specified in the RFP.
So, you know, we got 3 proposals back, I think, right? I read all those, well, we'll hold on the responses to our RFP for now. We also reached out to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Selectmen, and asked them, sent a letter asking them to participate with economic development, maybe assign someone to work with us on this effort. And, you know, like I said, the goal here is to have a situation where we're planning ahead as a group all together. So we don't run into a situation like we had recently where we had a mega huge warehouse. It would be a monster taxpayer to our town, but didn't really fit well. So I visited the Planning and Zoning Commission. They were generally favorable and thought it was a pretty good idea. We're generally favorable on both parts, the economic development part and the future planning for needs, tax-based growth, that economic development growth. So I talked to Chairman, I apologize, I'm being a jerk here.
Parcell?
Yeah, yes, thank you. I apologize, yes. Please, on film too. I talked to Walt and he was interested, thought it was a good idea. The rest of the commission reacted positively. I didn't receive anything back from the Board of Finance, not a peep, and I didn't hear anything back from the Board of Selectmen, nothing. Let's turn, before we talk about that any further, let's turn to the replies to our proposals, or our RFP. John wrote the RFP, I thought it was good, met all of our needs, we agreed that before we sent it, that was pretty good. The proposals we got back, I thought were focused, first one was out of whack in terms of pricing and costing. They seemed to be the most qualified and the one was local. Then we had 2 that were much more in the ballpark of where we needed to be. Sometimes with these things, you know, we get a little slapdash, which means that I'll throw something in there and I'll see if it sticks before I spend any more time on this. An example of that would be the Board of Education one that we did. So anyway, so I read through those 2. They were heavy on the economic development part, the traditional economic development planning part. They were almost nothing. Looking at our town holistically, looking at our grand list growth projected, looking at our projected needs in the future, and then trying to back that into what our economic growth would need to be. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm open to discussion and things, but given that we have very little participation from the rest of the government, maybe we should probably possibly hit pause for a little while and see where we go from here. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, the choice,
We haven't heard back. I mean,
the choice on the RFPs is three candidates that have responded, correct?
Yeah.
That's it.
Unless you rescope. Yes.
So how is that decision moved forward? Is it the Economic Development Commission? Is it, where does that decision lie in terms of picking the right candidate?
That would be the economic development.
I think you'd make a recommendation, but I think the Board of Selectmen has to endorse the contract.
Mhm.
And one of them was a beyond the budget, so if you wanted to go with that one submission, you'd have to ask ARPA for an allocation. And so that process would, unfold however long it took, and I don't know where that money stands. It wasn't like they were a couple thousand over,
That was huge.
it was almost double,
Yeah, I was gonna say more than double,
yeah.
but, right. So anyway.
I don't think we should do that.
Right, I'm reluctant to do that as well.
We're not gonna go over double because I question, I don't know how to say this, but I question that. I remember talking to somebody and I don't remember who it was, and they were like, actually it was on ARPA. It was not Stuart Fisher, the other Stuart Cobb, I think.
Right.
And he said, listen, they're going to take this. He said that he thought it was a waste of the money. He was not pro us. And I just think that at first I was like, well, he doesn't understand, we could find out from survey research or the issues that we have come up against when we try to develop like the village area and, get something in where juries used to be and just any, how people are so resistant. So kind of like, where's the push pull going to be? How can we get people to buy into it? That's what I was hoping. That's what I was fighting for, is really more resident input. And he was saying that it just really wasn't, it was going to be a waste of money because they can say like, oh, we already know the areas to develop, in terms of the businesses, what would be good. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't live here who can come in and say, this would be a supported business. Personally, I don't. That's just my opinion. Because what are they going to say? Oh, you don't have a grocery store. But then of course, when we remember when we got the resident input and they're like, we need this, we need that, all businesses that have been here and failed. So I don't know the right process for it, but that's why I think survey research is the most effective when done well, asking residents, because we can get people to give us their proposal, give us their ideas based on some other form of external data that is not generated by us. And if the people don't support the businesses, it doesn't matter. And that's what he was saying, is that people don't support businesses. So it's not, he thought that it may not be a smart move. And then I talked with a former member of EDC and they sort of concurred with that. And I thought, maybe that's true. We've seen that. It's kind of like, I hate to relate it to, but when you think about how many people were so adamant against, we're not going to do survey research on why, a certain proposal failed, because it doesn't really matter if it's going to keep failing. And that's kind of how I feel about this. So and just let me know where I can read those. Did you?
We emailed them out probably in July.
You emailed that. All right. So it's in my email somewhere and I didn't read it. We'll check those out. But that is my thought. I feel like we should go forward only with survey research, but you guys know I said that from the beginning. I just feel like that's the only thing that's going to be useful. Thank you for listening.
The one thing that, when we were talking through the agenda, you and I talked about was, and we talked about this, I think, as well, when we were scoping it, and this idea that really what you're asking for is like 4 different pieces of other types of plans, and they fall within the wheelhouse of different groups, different firms, right? So a very sort of public-facing, public outreach process, consensus building is not the same group that's going to do heavy financial analysis.
Right.
The Goldman York guys that you're referencing, they will do public meetings, but they're not gonna do the touchy-feely consensus building stuff. It's not their real approach.
And that's a big part of what my thought process was, and I think what we discussed.
Yeah, so I think that that all these pieces are important, but trying to get them all together in one plan that's where all this struggle is coming into play. I think we probably want to break it down, or consider it. And I mentioned to you that, a firm that, John and I interacted with,
About this,
he presented at a planning conference last year, and actually just finished a project for Tom, and, I think is working on something in Mansfield as well. He's an urban economics firm, so he's a strategic financial planning consultant. So he'll do economic impact analyses, business development plans. So he is a data person, he's a financial person. He's hired by a city that they're trying to figure out how to make a tax improvement finance district work, or he's hired by a business to determine if their plan is actually gonna go, or is it gonna flop? He's not gonna do public meetings. He's not gonna have planning around a table. That's not his wheelhouse. But if we knew the question to ask him, I think that he could tee up a plan which perhaps then this commission could lead some of those more community-based efforts.
what's that,
His last name is spelled right on it. His first name is Ernie. He's based in Massachusetts.
Ernie.com?
No, it's called Strategy 5 is the name of the business. So, we've talked with him about some stuff, and I work in Tallinn, so I've interacted with him. He's a really nice guy, and I think that he would be willing to, if I asked to just have him come to your meeting, and just talk with you and maybe provide some professional expertise, and if you're asking a question that can't be answered, and maybe ground this a little bit. I know what the town of Tallinn spent for his project, which was a multifamily housing fiscal impact analysis. It was not anywhere close to what we have allocated. So I think that he might provide some color, if nothing else. It'd be worth seeing if he would be willing to spend a few minutes with you guys to just bounce ideas.
Let's preliminarily, we'll see what everyone thinks.
Yeah,
I'm
all for that.
on board.
Definitely.
I'd like to take a look at this first.
Yeah, I can send you his,
No, I'll go
His
to
web.
the website stuff.
okay,
Strategy 5, Massachusetts, urban plan, got it.
yeah. Urban economics.
Our original discussions on this, we started out and said, well, let's look at best case, worst case, most likely over a 5 and 10 year period, if we do nothing.
That's right.
And come up with a base with regards to, inflationary pressures, operating budget, population increase, but make some assumptions. And then we branched out into the strategy, especially after the discussions in town about the 84 Trade Center. And say, this would be a good way to get planning and zoning, board of selectmen, finance, everybody at least working together.
He's talking.
I mean, that was the original intention.
And within a context of financially looking forward, where we want to be and where we need to be.
And I think if we simplify the RFP a little bit, we might come back to that again.
Yeah.
And talk it. I mean, I don't believe outside firm addressing stakeholders and residents in town. I think it's a great idea, but I think we're better off if we talk to them as opposed to strangers.
Yeah.
Because the stranger, is just gonna repeat what you heard. So financial direction and some of the assumptions that you have to make, I mean, this is a business.
Yeah.
We're running a business.
That's where what we were talking about overlaps with the plan of conservation and development. The problem is, everybody's behind open space preservation when there isn't a development proposal to take away open space. And everybody's in favor of economic development when there isn't a development that they might not be in favor of.
Mhm.
So if you could maybe paint the picture first.
Right.
And say, here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Here's what the numbers are, right? This is not a hypothetical situation.
Right.
Maybe there's a lot of towns that do POC surveys and they say, would you be willing to pay X amount of dollars more per year to support increased open space preservation? Is the grand list a factor you think town officials should use when evaluating commercial development projects? So if we know what the outlook is, maybe then we can back into that outreach to actually develop the consensus. But right now, we're asking them to answer a question and we don't know what the future actually looks like. But as we've seen from the warehouse and other things, if we put a realistic scenario in front of them, it's easier to get opinions. Because they have something to give you an opinion about.
It's creating an understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
I still think that's what we ought to
So,
hone in on.
well, how's this? We sort of hit pause. We do semi-pause. I'll look into this group, Mike.
Remember that gentleman we met down in Berlin? Do you have-
Yeah.
Do you have his name?
Chris
Yeah, I have, right, yeah, Chris.
Edge.
Yeah,
I'd love to sit down with him.
oh, we can do it.
I would. He was a bright individual.
Yep.
Motivated. And, you know, he had a lot of grassroots approaches. And he said, if you want to get this going, you got to get people excited that who are in town for a while. And, you know, he says, you start with the contractors, start with these guys and these guys. He said, because they know everybody. So I'd like to talk to him again. He gave a lot of time to us and he was a good man.
Been there, what, 10 or 15 years maybe?
Is this interactive or should I wait to the end to say something?
Stuart, is it Stu or Stuart?
It's a great conversation and
We're interactive, so.
I'm sorry. I should
We're
wait for the answer.
interactive.
Okay. It's a great conversation. I've been doing a lot of door knocking the past few weeks and talking to the residents, the taxpayers, about what's important to them. And one of the things I wrote down, Mike stole it before I could say it, was building consensus, and I'm sure that's a term you use here frequently. My campaign strategy is pretty basic at this point, because I think the town's a little fractured. We gotta bring the town together. And you're saying that you hope the committees would work better together, come together as a group. And I certainly echo that sentiment. And I think leadership is really important. You know, nothing changes if nothing changes. One of my favorite sayings. And in a small town, sometimes that's seen as leprosy. What do you mean change? Change means changing Willington into something less rural. No, I have no desire to do that. I don't think anybody here does, but nobody wants the millweight to grow. But people want grocery stores, people want this, people want that.
We had these competing things, and if we, in being interactive, you know, we have these competing things and no one's bringing it all together. And this was sort of an attempt to try and do that, but go ahead.
But I think we can do that. I think we can do that in the next few years. And I think there's plenty of townspeople that want to get on that page too. But I lost my other thought, so I might have to come back to it.
That's okay. So I'm running for selectman and I was knocking on doors as well.
Okay.
And I'm hearing some of the same things, that we're fractured, need to come together, work together. And, you know, providing the backdrop and the material for people to look at and analyze, to come to agreement on things, I think is a good idea. So, and that's why I brought this up to the group, and that's why we move forward with it. But, so.
I don't think it's rhetoric though. I think it's real. And I like what you said about surveys, but you can survey the heck out of things and never go anywhere. But you have some survey results here.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you're doing with them, what your plans are to do with that, but you've got some good survey results that could foster some conversation with the taxpayers.
Yeah, we The survey is just simply going out and talking to businesses in town as individuals. You know, I did 2, he did 5. Bill did a much better job on his than I did on mine, and I'm the professional survey researcher. But the idea there was just to give us a starting point and to feed into one of the next items on our agenda. I don't want to switch subjects right now, which is, you know, future commission initiatives, but before we go there, so I think if it's okay with you guys, we will kind of sort of pause for a moment, look at ways to rejigger or rethink about our RFP and potential responses to that, maybe reissuing, unsure. Sam, do you have your hand up again, or is that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go
Nope,
ahead.
I just put it up.
Okay.
So as far as like, it is good to be interactive as long as yeah, we always have to remain productive with it because we could talk about, I mean, we've had conversations. Sometimes I feel like we just spin our wheels, even though we make progress, guys, it's just very slow. And and we make slow progress. But I just wanted to say that I do agree with you. I think that, you know, it's hard fought. We have a very small budget. I know there's a lot of people who question our use of that budget and like want to probably reduce our budget. So we want to make sure that we are, you know, being prudent and wise in the way that we're using any budget that we have, including this resource that we got from ARPA. So I think we should put a pause on it to really hone in on. I thought that what you said, Mike, was perfect, which you always say the perfect thing. You always really capture what's actually happening. And that was the perfect way to put it, is that we're kind of like looking at all of these different things, and we may not be able to find one place to do it. So that we need to really hone in on and agree as a committee or commission what we want to do. As clearly, you know what I want. Bill kind of, we think it started from different ways, I guess. I don't know, maybe it started before in a different way and sort of segued into me because I had a thought about it. Like I said, it was only about the survey research because that's what I had talked about to Rick about before I even joined the EDC. But anyway, so I agree with you. That's all about putting it on hold, looking into this other person and really honing in on exactly what we want to do and executing it well so that we're not all over the place, spinning our wheels, spending half, you know, like getting half answers on each thing. And I feel like, you know, if you want to follow the process of the challenges, all of that we've had and the discussions and where they've led us, all of the meetings have been recorded, at least as long as I've been coming here, which has been since 2020. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
Can I just jump? I have one thing. So one of the things that we do probably want to do is we need to let the people who submitted RFPs know what we're doing. It's been, you know, a couple of months now, and so it would probably be good for John and I to reach out and just let them know kind of the commission has reevaluated.
No, not reevaluate, just indicate that we're under review and looking at our purpose in the budgets and the proposals. Look, we're only 1 month away. I don't want people to, I don't want to separate yet or refocus yet.
Okay.
Let's get to the next step first, and then do that.
So what is the next step? Just so I want to make sure I understand.
I want to
Just talk through to him.
yeah, I want to look at this strategy 5.
Okay.
Get back in touch with you, move forward, get some input. Then we'll reach out to we can just send them a note saying, thank you very much, still under consideration. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no refocusing or.
No, I just didn't want them to just, you know, not hear anything for several
I get
months
it.
and.
That's good. That works.
And I just checked, so because these are ARPA dollars, there is a timetable associated with them. We need to be absolutely focused on exactly what we're spending, what dollars we're spending and what we're spending it on by 2024, the end of 2024. So we do have some time. Everything has to be obligated.
It has to be encumbered by end of 2024.
It has obligated.
Obligated.
So we have to know we're spending $25 on this exact thing. So if the approach or the costs or the
It's
scope.
obligated in that context, mean budgeted, or it's obligated in that mean
Well,
contracted?
Because it's ARPA, we already have the money. It came in 2 tranches.
Understand.
So that we have to be able to report into the feds through the town what the money has been obligated, because you only have to, I keep saying obligate by that date, you have to then spend it and you have the project completed by 12/31/26.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah,
I got it.
I got there, sorry.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
When was it awarded?
It was awarded at the second public hearing, probably in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna 7 or 8 months ago.
I mean, the federal,
It was awarded a long time ago, but they were several months late in actually dispersing the money. We got the money that came from the state, and the federal, the second tranche came quite late. The only reason we were able to continue allocating is because many of, pretty much all the projects that the town has allocated ARPA funds to have come in under budget. So this project would come in, we'd have savings. But it came in, I'd say probably almost a year ago now. I don't know for sure.
if I could find a bank that worked that way.
Yeah, right.
I'll let you know what I'm gonna use the money for.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there are guidelines. I mean, we have specifics, and we have to report every single expenditure, what category it comes out of. And you can get all that reporting online, by the way. You can see what each town is spending on, download the spreadsheet, you can,
So,
that's all.
is it okay if we move, is it okay if we move forward to the next one? Is that all right?
Yeah, I mean, in summary,
Okay.
we're not looking to walk away from this. I think we're just gonna retool it a little bit.
Yep.
That, hopefully get back to the original intention.
Hopefully. Okay, so next piece of business, and this is an interactive session, unlike some other boards where we have to wait and stuff, so I'm interested in what people think, but future commission initiatives, which is, okay, we've done a lot of stuff, over the past several years. I mean, you're a longer term member than I am, but for the past several years, we've successfully done grants. We're trying to move forward with rebuilding sidewalks. We've done zoning changes. We've done special zoning districts, which was a little bit controversial. And we've done some outreach. We've done signage. So we're moving forward doing lots of these things, and some of which I missed. I'm interested in what the commission's thoughts are in terms of how we move forward next step. Where do we go from here? So, I didn't give a lot of thought to this before this meeting.
That was a good recap.
I was too busy reading Bill's survey results, but.
Mr. Clark, could I pipe up with a couple
Yes.
comments here,
Absolutely, yes.
since it's supposedly interactive?
What do you mean supposedly? You're participating in it.
Well, I am now, yeah.
Yes.
And I gotta make it quick,
Last
because I
one.
wanna get back downstairs.
Yeah.
One of the drawbacks I see with many of the development proposals that we've seen over the years is they're all site focused, property focused. They have never been, there was never been any real consideration of surrounding properties that may integrate wholly or partially into a proposed project.
What does it integrate, sites integrate?
I'm sorry?
What does sites integrate wholly or partially mean? Help me understand.
Well, example, Dollar
Yeah.
General.
Dollar General.
Dollar General and the plaza and that side street
Yeah,
could have all been combined into one more coherent, sensible development. That side street's there from the days of the horse and buggy because it made it easier to get up the hills or whatever the reason was. But it's not truly functional from a traffic standpoint.
No.
Love's could have been done better had we pushed moving Polster Road and incorporating the property that was across Polster Road. They could have moved it away from the river and the wetlands down below, and it could have been a much nicer, much bigger development. But you've got property owners that only got tunnel vision. They're only concerned about selling their property. And I get that. I understand that side of it too. But when you look at a planning and zoning commission, there's two hats there. There's planning and there's zoning. Planning is much more important sometimes. And trying to improve a proposal above and beyond the one parcel that is being eyed. The railroad thing, I think it would be ideal to bring a road up parallel with the tracks, right to 74.
The railroad has the right of way from 40 feet of the center of their track to both sides. They were looking at that, and I brought them down to Y Road, and I looked at them and I said.
Y Road or Depot Road?
Huh?
You know, Y Road?
No, I brought them down, not Y Road. Well, I call it Y Road, it's not Y Road.
Phelps.
I apologize. I brought them over to where the Dollar General is and.
Oh, Phelps Way or
showed
whatever you
showed
want
them
to
the
call it.
interaction, 74 and the truck coming out. And I said, now you wanna take a road, make a road on the side of the tracks coming past the restaurant, you know, the flat penny or what's called. And they said, all right, we got you. That's not gonna happen. But they wanted to put an access using the right of way of the railroad to get trucks in and out of Desiato's property to avoid them having to go around. And
Up the hill.
Yeah.
So,
Just a couple comments. I've got to bug out and go downstairs for another meeting, but
Yeah, that's very
I just
helpful.
wanted to throw that thought out there.
You know, I know that there's development districts in large cities, which obviously we're not. And they have, they make efforts to zone things beforehand, pre-zone, if you will,
Right.
to try and cobble together. And I think
Very
that
quick.
might be something that you're,
I understand.
Yeah.
A very quick situation. Yeah.
someone's calling for you. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they're just letting me know I can go downstairs now. Juries, the old juries on the corner. It is possible to connect that parking lot to the paved parking lot across from the mill. And make that parking lot the egress in and out to that building. But it crosses two other properties. And if that could be integrated, that would be wonderful. But you've got to get the cooperation of 3 property owners to do something like that. I don't know how you do that.
The Drury's Tavern property owner is unwilling in every way, shape and form.
No, I understand, but
People
I'm
have
not
said,
talking,
please let me buy, please let me, she's completely uninterested, I don't know. But I hear you, we're trying.
but somehow you have to have a lever sometimes to make that happen. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm just saying, it would improve the whole situation down there because it would provide for parking, a lot more parking for the mill with safer access to and from 32. Anyway, I gotta go downstairs, guys.
thank you.
Thank
That's my
you.
2 cents for tonight.
2 cents is much appreciated. Okay, if we can move to,
Well, on the initiatives,
Yeah.
you know, we spent an awful lot of time on the strategic development zone. The permit, where is that now after we had the trade center? I mean, do we need to revisit that again, or I know the strategic plan.
Yeah, so, there was Mr. Marshall submitted a text amendment application to the SDZ, which the commission considered, and then we considered a temporary moratorium, how to deal with it. The commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission recognizes the function, but wanted to refine it. And so in trying to figure out that, and then talking about the strategic plan, moratoriums have a time frame. So what we did is we basically kept the first 3 sections, which is what it is, some general purpose to it, and basically the commercial, just that it's a commercial sort of development, sort of the organization. And we deleted everything else. So it still sits as 12.15 in the zoning regs, but everything useful about it has been stripped out. So nobody can make application under it.
well, it's still there, it's just rescinded.
No, the first 3 subsections are there,
Right,
but all the eligibility, the process, all that's gone.
all the implementations.
Right, because we didn't want to rip it out totally.
Is that paused or gone?
We dismantled it so that it's useless, so that we aren't under a timetable to revise it which is what a moratorium would require. So that if the strategic plan or something else,
It's in purgatory.
right, it's not been discussed since then, frankly, by the commission.
I mean, the reason I brought it up was what Ralph was talking about. Before you jump in, you know, if you had something that was understood by developers, it would make it a lot easier to approach the town, and we spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was.
And just for whatever it's worth, the town of Coventry has a couple of parcels. They're currently talking with a consultant for plans on, let's go through and let's do some conceptual layouts and let's figure out what could go here. And from a housing perspective, what would be the density, what would be the massing, how many units, how would this all look? And they're spent a significant amount of money, more than we'd spend here. And there's sort of a consensus of, we could spend all this money. It has absolutely nothing to do with the development that's gonna show up. At the end of the day, everybody has a model, how many units they build, how big it needs to be, who they'll use, how much they're willing to spend. And if those metrics don't work, it doesn't matter whether you have the entire site planned or it's completely fresh, right? So it really, what it comes down to is, this is how much I can spend, this is how much it's gonna cost, and if there's a gap, is the town willing to play around in that ballpark? I mean, you see the towns that are doing development now, they're almost all of them give tax deals. Either an equal stabilization agreement or an abatement. The 3.8 million square foot Amazon facility in Windsor, they gave them $100 million abatement. So they sit down with somebody like Ernie and they say, these are the numbers, and the town looks at the numbers and they say, okay, that makes sense. We see that doesn't work. CROG just issued a study to a town I'm working in for multifamily housing. Construction cost is about $336 a square foot. And
336 a square foot.
Yeah.
How tall is it built?
it was, I think 100 units, 100 square feet. And immediately upon construction and CO, if they wanted to flip that asset, they'd lose $100 a square foot. So that's
the bad.
and this is on the CT fast track, right? So they have access to transit. And we don't even have infrastructure yet. You've gotta have a way to figure those numbers out in that math. I mean, there are a lot of towns even nearby. Towns, one of them, they offer tax agreements.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. And we've talked about this at planning and zoning. They say, what do we do about the fact that it costs so much more to construct here? We have no water, we have no sewer, we have no gas. So they're doing everything on site. A septic system could be 30 grand.
Yeah.
So we've talked about that, and we've talked about increasing densities, reducing row sizes to decrease cost. But it doesn't change the actual site development, right? Site prep and all this other crazy. It's just a numbers game, I think.
Okay. What I can tell you, the people who've been in town that I talk to and own businesses, they say it's not easy to live in a rural neck of the woods, but we like it. You know, you drive 15 to 20 miles to get your groceries, round trip, it's 40 miles. You know, you gotta drive your kid over to their friend's house because they can't walk there because it's, you know. That's why. But people who like that, like town. And unfortunately, we don't have sewers. Unfortunately, you're gonna use well water. Inconvenient? Yeah, but I like it.
I like it.
So, I mean, we're not gonna, I mean, I would like to, I brought that up, Ralph kind of jolted it in my memory, because I thought it was a great idea when we were working on it, because at least it opens up the door and people understand walking into your office, what's required. And as we retool the strategic plan, we will do both at the same time.
Oh, no, absolutely, absolutely, I think so. I don't know, I'm not quite sure what that would look like, trying to pre-zone and pre-plan, developing, bridging over different parcels and stuff. I'm not quite sure how that works. But I understand the concept and I understand what he's talking about. Okay, you're going to the next one? Good?
I'm all good, yeah.
Yeah, you are. Are you sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
LoSiP update. Mike, can you give us an update on the LoSiP thing?
Yep, so we in July, we had our 90% design meeting with CROG, got all of our comments back. We received, I don't want to call them favorable reviews as if there wouldn't have been, but we received a favorable review from the State Historic Preservation Office. They're required to review the project. Deep is required to do an environmental review on the project, which we got back. And we received finally comments from both sections of DOT, which are required to review. So we'll be doing a final 100% design meeting with the CROG in October. And assuming they are in agreement with all of our final revisions, we'll then need to move forward with scoping for bids. There are 3 to 4 properties which will have basically some minor impacts because the sidewalk is going to an ADA standard and we have to rebuild that retaining wall and some other things. So we'll have to reach out to those property owners and there will be some easements.
Well, hold on, let's just be a little careful. I mean, one of them is gonna have a lot of their front yard taken out and talk to that lady.
It's not a lot, and because we have constrained the actual width of the travel way to the minimum that DOT will allow.
Okay, all right.
And yeah, so that whole front yard area and all that, basically the grant rebuilds that whole thing.
Right.
So there is some encroachment, but it shouldn't be hugely significant because the only thing it needs to accommodate is the additional work.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it's been 2 years that we've been working on this. And it's like, I can't believe it takes this long, but, you know, but we did include, the opposite side as well, right?
So the opposite side gets removed. Because right now what happens is you have it for a section and then you have a utility poles. You can't actually run it down that side. So, nor are there safe places to cross. So there's the sections that are on the, what is that, west?
Yeah.
Gets pulled out.
Do the homeowners know that?
I mean, we did a direct mailer for the first public information session to everybody. Let them know. I think that might have been before you were on the commission, but we had a public information session. We mailed a copy of what was happening to every single person on River Road. We had that jointly with the South Willington Village Zone.
No, I didn't do that.
And like the woman you're talking to, she came in, we reviewed the plans with her in the office, gave her a set. We had some other people that participated. So we did make them all aware.
How's that, excuse me for going into detail, I apologize, but how's that being taken out and what's going in its place?
It'll be removed and it'll just be grassed. I mean, it's really a 2.5 foot wide sidewalk that's 80 years old.
I understand.
So that'll be removed, but we would have to relocate all of the electric lines onto private property effectively to get a 4 foot wide sidewalk. And nobody wants it and it's hugely expensive.
So what are we looking at in terms of a projection for the future of actual implementation?
The goal is to be able to do all of this stuff pertaining to easements, scoping, bid docs and everything over the winter for construction next season. We'd like it to dovetail so that it doesn't impact school. Because obviously with buses and everything there, one of the things that we're doing is fixing that weird intersection by the parking lot where, what is it?
Yeah. Drove that the other day.
It's Penny Hill,
Penny
or
Hill
Penny
Extension.
Hill, yeah.
Penny Hill and then Penny Hill Extension.
Yeah, so
goes
the
that way.
extension, right, so that gets
Yeah.
closed.
That is a bizarre little,
Right.
yeah.
The parking lot goes to 90s in entrance and exit, so people pull in like a normal entrance and exit. So that work, you know, having that happen while school's in session is much more complicated. So that would be the goal.
Anything else on low-slip sidewalks?
No.
Any other questions from the commission?
No questions, I'm good, thank you.
How about we turn to ARPA Brig?
So the only thing I wanted to mention there was that it was discussed at one of the previous ARPA meetings that the commission would really like to know what everybody that got grants spent it on and how that is going. Have they spent it? Have they not? What are they using it for? And I think to have a little bit of a confirmation that they used it as they should have. But also to just be able to say, you know, this was the actual impact of this funding. So the plan is, or the request was that we be able to present for December approximately, sort of a gut check on, where that is with all those recipients. So
My hand on this.
what we would need
Why
to
am
do is,
I?
Oh, Sam, I'm sorry. Did you have your hand up, Sam?
No, I'm trying to put my hand. I'm sorry, I unmuted and I'm trying to put my hand up. I didn't mean to
Okay.
interrupt you.
No worries. Good.
I don't know why I have this thumbs up on there. I have stuff to say about that. I think that we should send something out to the people that received a BRIC grant. You know, maybe make it into a Google form so that they can respond at will. Like it's got to be them doing it. And Mike, you and I sat in those meetings and there was so much discussion beforehand about how do we know what they're going to spend it on. And one of the major points that we made was that we were not auditing them. I mean, that was a huge part of, we argued back and forth about it, whether it was our responsibility to audit. You looked into it. It turned out that if they didn't use the money as stated, that we were supposed to, like, I remember Stuart Cobb had said, well, how do we know they're not going to use it for vacation? And it's like, well, if you see them going on a big vacation, then they are supposed to be reported to the IRS and to the federal government. That's what we had discussed. Because I remember that I had said to him that when a business comes to us and says, hey, we lost money due to COVID, we believe them on good faith. Just like when the fire department came to us and said, hey, we had costs associated with COVID, we believed them on good faith as well. We didn't make every single person prove down to the dot and tittle what the issues were. So I'm just saying that I don't know how far you want to go with that, but I don't think that based on our discussions, we should do more than send out an email and let people voluntarily respond so that we can, give that feel good report. And I heard that report was motivated by something else anyway. Because how can somebody go back on what they said? We can watch all the meetings and they said that we didn't have to audit it. And that's basically asking us for proof.
I remember that conversation, Sam. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I remember that conversation in the EDC. And it is exactly what you said. It was, we're not going to audit people. We can't audit people. Yeah. So, and I remember the conversation about that. Mike, what do you think about?
Mike did the research. No, Mike, you did the research on it and came back that we didn't even have the authority to audit them, that they weren't like violating against us, the EDC, because we're not an authority. Any violation of use of funds would actually be a violation against a state or a local state or federal government. So I don't even understand how it is that now we're being asked to do that. It seems, like I said, it's going backwards on the commitments that were made. And I don't understand why this office or this commission, more than anyone else, is asked to do that.
It is a little bit perplexing, but comments from commission members?
I'm with Sam. I mean, I think we should just send out an email and if people respond, they respond. If they don't, they don't.
I think that might be appropriate. What do you think, Bill?
I'm gonna abstain.
If I might, Matt, it's John. Sorry, I had to dip out for a moment. We can certainly easily structure, sort of a non-intrusive solicitation for success stories, essentially, and try to turn this into an economic development celebration rather than something more intrusive. And I think that would work.
and just to remind, all of these businesses signed an agreement. We didn't just hand them a poster-sized check. I mean, they all signed an agreement that indicates that they're gonna be using the money for that. So they would, in theory, be violating that agreement, just like any other town or city that takes this money, and it's the same thing. But I think that John's point is, I mean, there's also a lot of positive that comes from it, and there might be a lot of things that we can, pull from that.
Well, I concur, John. That's a good observation. So positioning this as following up on our communication, tell us success stories, tell us how this has helped, and then providing a summary of that with the source documents back to Sam, what do you think about, back to, ARPA? Sam, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we can, I think we would have wanted to do that anyway, so I feel like that falls in line. I would have liked to know if that money had helped and get success stories and things that we could utilize for material for like Facebook or for future, future positive impacts about the commission and to kind of increase that morale. Like one of the things when we talked about what we want to do in the future, I know that we want to give the businesses a sense of community, and we haven't really gotten to that yet. And we're starting to with these interviews, like things that they might need and like connect them to each other. So we could put that like in a newsletter or put it in the Willington Wire without it feeling, like you said, like an audit, or without us taking on that responsibility. Because I feel like if we did ultimately take it on, then suddenly we're in it and then we are responsible. So,
Thank you, Sam.
yep, thank you. I love John's idea. I think that's great.
Yeah,
I do
right.
too.
That's why he earns okay, so that sounds like a plan. So John, you can draw up some kind of a communication, what it would look like. Do we have to vote on that? I mean, you can send that to me or
I
to
can
the.
I can send a draft to the commission just to show you what it is, and if there are any massive objections, you can throw your body ahead of the email. But I'll give you guys a heads up before I send anything out.
Yeah, that sounds good. You guys in agreement?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, and that's ARPA, great. By the way, does anybody know, you sit on the ARPA commission as an employee of the town, for spending all that cash. What is the status? I'm just curious, what is all the money encumbered for ARPA?
No.
Okay.
There's money left, but there was some placeholders for a couple of different things. It's like some contingency, not knowing what the future might look like. And so right now we had all the allocations from basically the first tranche. And so as those projects get closed, those savings get returned back. So we're kind of at a hiatus waiting for some of that to get closed out so we can see what the actual number is as far as what's left. But it's not all spent.
How much is that?
How much is left?
How much, I mean, if you had to guess off the record, that's possible.
Not possible. I couldn't tell you. I would guess it would be, when all is said and done, returned back in some way, shape or form, I would think 100,000.
And that's added to what hasn't been. Were we 100% spent?
No, because of some of those holdovers. But I don't think, and Stu's on the commission as well, so he can chime in if I'm remembering it correctly. But I don't think there's one project that's come in above what was requested. I think they all come in under, but we don't get that until they close it out.
Okay.
There's projects that were approved pending financing, waiting for money to return before taking them to the next step.
Oh, okay.
So they've quasi closed the process on new projects because there's enough in the pipeline that we're gonna have to make some decisions on spreading that money around at the end of the road. And we're rapidly approaching that.
Thank you, appreciate that. Okay,
So can I just, you want the data? This is a couple of months old. This is as of the spring. There was roughly 25,000 not allocated. A $50,000 contingencies have been set aside on top of that. And as of that date, 102,000 returned from completed projects under budget.
got it.
And the original amount was 2.3 million,
1.7.
1.7.
And it's been allocated over, at this point, approximately 47 projects.
125,000, okay.
I apologize, I've spoken a few times. I'm Stuart Fisher, 65 Lodge Road in Willington, for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so upcoming meeting date, October 25th.
Mhm.
Works for me. I'm gonna be very tired. My daughter's getting married on October 23rd.
Congratulations.
The last of the Mohicans.
I think it's good. Sam, what do you think about?
I think we're doing that wedding. I think, Bill Rankin, I think we're doing that wedding at Wildflowers of Talent because I know Ann, she comes in. Sorry, but
I'm
no.
not sure. I think Ann found out about it,
Didn't she tell you that I saw her there? But anyway, we are,
I'll tell you what.
I think I'm working that wedding is what I'm saying.
Sam, all
I'll
I
be
know, I just gotta show up. That's all I know.
We'll check.
Flowers are expensive and I'm showing up. No,
All right,
because Ann is
so-
a regular customer up there. But anyway, yeah, so 25th is good for me.
Thank you, Sam. Good.
Yeah, it's good for me.
Works for me.
We're good. So that's good. And public participation. We have Ms. McKinnon on the line, and Stu in the audience.
I am, but I'm good. Thank you.
You. All set, Stu?
Yes, thank you.
Thank
I make a
Enjoy.
motion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, why don't you, I'll make the motion. Sam, will you second?
What's the motion?
The motion is to adjourn the meeting.
I second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed? Being the chair, the ayes have it.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you very much, everyone.